Retro Quickies, Airwolf.
If you're an old hat when it comes to the NES collecting scene, there is a handful of really common games that constantly cropped up at the bottom of the pricing barrel. I'm talking like sub-$2 labels back when I was actively collecting. Good luck finding anything for that price nowadays, of course, but that's beside the point. There is, or used to be, a handful of non-sports NES games that were considered so common and so undesirable that resellers were basically willing to give them away for the price of shipping online. Airwolf is one of those games that I associate with this sort of practice the most. I saw this on sale for practically nothing all the time. And of course, I bought it. But at such a low price at the time, I guess I just assumed the game was garbage and never actually played it. Nowadays, in my quest to at least try out as many games as I can and give them an honest shot, I'm working my way through that pile of cheap games I picked up early in my collecting journey but never bothered to play. And Airwolf, developed by Beam Software, published by Acclaim, and based on the Canadian military drama of the same name, was near the top of that list. Airwolf was one of those games that was ported to almost every single platform available under the sun, most of them developed and published by a company called Kyugo, but for some reason the NES version was an exception. Now, as an adaptation, I can't really speak to how well it holds up, as I've never seen, nor ever even heard of Airwolf, the TV series, as it was a bit before my time, running from 1984 to 87, with the last season or so moving from Canada to the US. As such, its status as a licensed game will not be in much consideration during this video, though I will say it definitely does not seem like something that is really interested in being a drama, that's for sure. Acclaim was also one of those developers that seemed to specialize in the idea of quantity over quality, and they threw out tons of licensed games on the platform, some good and many bad. Airwolf is, well, I struggle to call it bad. I think it sets out to do what it wants to do quite nicely. I'm just not sure if that makes it fun to play. You play as a copter pilot pulled out of retirement, as the only one with the skills and the bravery to fly deep into enemy territory to help extract hostages over a series of 20 missions. As such, you fly into enemy territory, shoot down any bogeys that get in your way, optionally take down enemy airfields, land, and extract the hostages, and then fly out of enemy airspace, while also having to manage your copter's fuel and durability, and your missile supply. Controls are kind of interesting here, and I will applaud the game for literally using every single button on the controller. You can rotate left and right and pitch the copter up and down slightly with the D-pad, fire an infinite ammo machine gun with the A button, and fire heat-seeking missiles with B. However, in order to actually accelerate, you use the Start button to increase your speed, and the Select button to lower it. This does mean that you have a good range of motion with being able to dip your copter up and down, which is necessary to keep yourself safe from enemy fire at times, but it does also mean that you have no means of pausing the game, so hope you didn't plan on any bathroom breaks while you're playing this one. You view the action entirely from a first-person perspective in the copter cockpit. From this vantage point, you have a very limited view of what's actually happening around you, and can really only see things that are happening directly in front, which will usually just consist of waves of enemy fighter jets that, if they get close enough to you, will fire a missile at you, which if you don't shoot them down, are pretty much guaranteed to hit you. You also can't see any sort of landscape either, it's all just flat terrain and open sky despite the fact that you are ostensibly in the jungle. Below the cockpit view, you get a map of the surrounding area, showing you where you are on the map and, most importantly, where each of the major camps are located. It also shows you where the map's boundaries are, which is important when you rescue the hostages. And beside the map is your damage level, your fuel, your speed level, and your missile ammo. Damage is easy enough to understand, it's how many hits you've taken. You can take a total of 3 hits before being critically damaged, take another hit after that, and lose a life. Speed, like I said, can be increased and decreased with the Start and Select buttons respectively, and it's easy enough to understand. The higher the number, the greater the speed, but the higher the speed, the quicker your fuel drains, and the harder it is to make tighter turns. Both things you have to consider, especially in later stages where you're going to have to make a lot of refueling pit stops and will have to worm your way into some pretty narrow parts of the map. Fuel will drain constantly while you're flying, and your missiles can be fired off whenever you hit the B button, and will automatically home in on the closest target, though it can't target enemy missiles that are fired at you. There are 3 different types of camps you can find in every level. The first and most important are the hostage camps, marked with these little stick figures. When you fly over one, you'll automatically transition to a little landing minigame where you have to carefully let your copter drift down to the ground without slamming into the ground too fast, hitting the towers on either side of the camp, or getting hit by the sparks in the air that symbolize enemy fire. Thankfully, this part of the game is incredibly simple. Landing aircraft in NES games tended to be pretty infamous for being difficult or obtuse, but thankfully this game barely needs you to do anything, even late into the game. You really just need to make sure to tap up to slow your descent a little bit here and there, and make sure that the wind isn't pushing you into the towers, and boom. You barely even have to tap either. You can go in pretty hot so long as you aren't moving at maximum speed when you get near the ground. It's pretty generous, and once you are on the ground, the hostage will automatically board your copter, and you'll automatically fly off, reappearing on the map screen, still moving at the same speed you were at before entering the hostage camp. The second camp, marked with an oil barrel, is a refueling camp. Eventually you'll get to the point in the game where you're going to be running low on fuel and missiles before you can grab all of the hostages and make your escape, and because of that, you're going to have to refuel. These stations behave just like hostage camps. You just fly over the symbol on your map, and you'll be transferred to a landing sequence. You land, and then you'll automatically be refueled, with your missiles restocked and all of your damage repaired. Planning out your route so that you can grab the hostages and easily stop at the refueling stations as needed is going to be real important for later missions, as the maps get larger, meaning you'll have to increase your speed to get where you need to go quickly, which of course causes you to lose fuel more quickly, meaning more refueling, and so the cycle repeats. Lastly, there are enemy airfields, which are marked with airplanes on the map. When you get near an airfield, you'll start approaching a large tower, giving you a chance to destroy it. If you manage to destroy it, congrats, your enemy won't be able to scramble as many jets to go and kill you. However, if you approach the airfield and fail to destroy the tower, you're greeted with a cutscene of more enemy jets scrambling, indicating that you're about to have to deal with a lot more enemies showing up. All things considered, destroying enemy airfields is largely optional, and it doesn't take long before they're placed in parts of the map that can feel pretty out of the way, so you generally do not have to feel obligated to go out and shoot them down. It can be helpful, knocking out reinforcements, but other times it's just easier to go from hostage camp to hostage camp, grab the hostages, and then book it. After you rescue the last hostage, all you have to do to complete the mission is just fly off of the map, past the borders, and you'll successfully complete the stage and move on to the next. This, though, is where the controls can be a bit finicky. See, when you're trying to land at a hostage or refueling camp, the game is pretty generous. You don't have to fly directly over the camp or the airfield in order to instigate landing. But by the same token, if you get close to the map's borders before rescuing all the hostages, you are turned away and told to go and rescue the rest of them. When this happens, though, your copter is brought to a full stop and you have to start speeding up again, all while you're a complete sitting duck until you get moving. You can still rotate and pitch, but actively avoiding incoming fire, obviously, is a lot tougher when you aren't moving, says Captain Obvious. But the thing about the map border is they seem to activate when you get anywhere near them, which can really slow you down, especially in map areas where the borders become very narrow, because there's no period of adjustment. You just suddenly slow to a stop when you get near them, and you're not really prepared for it. Even trying to get moving again while you're near the border can result in you triggering the stopping animation again, even if you're facing away from it. Anyway, that's the general flow of the game, and it is a very fast flow. Even when you start getting into the latter half of the game, these missions are lightning quick, and while you can't blitz through later stages like you can the first few, it's surprisingly easy to just bop from one hostage to the other, occasionally stopping for a refuel before dashing over the border with the people you've rescued. And at the start of the game, you can basically deal with most threats by just holding down the fire button. However, as the enemies get more aggressive, this strategy does become less applicable, even though it seems like it should keep working. Eventually, on-ground mortar fire will start to crop up, and the fighter jets start to get smart enough to keep out of your crosshairs, necessitating more liberal use of your missiles. Shooting down missiles also becomes trickier, and it's honestly already a bit annoying to do so, since turning to line up a shot at them is honestly very difficult, and you can't really easily and timely turn to fire them. Sometimes it even feels like they're actively turning to move out of range of your shots, too. And of course, damage is all but assured when there are more than one of these things on the screen at a time. Beyond that, the presentation is kind of mixed. The flying screens themselves don't look too bad, though the lack of any sort of variation in the landscape can make it look very boring. The pixelated images of refueling, the scrambling jets, and your commanding officer who gives you the briefing between missions all look quite nice, though they do radiate a little bit of MS Paint energy. Not to make it sound like the illustrations are bad, it's honestly kind of impressive, the level of detail put into them, even if the faces can look a little bit off. The lack of animation for a lot of the action is a bit strange at times. Your copter doesn't even pitch or change orientation when you try to land, and the most animation you get for enemy planes and missiles is their sprites getting larger or smaller as they approach you, and the jittery sprite of a hostage or a refueler walking towards you whenever you successfully land the copter. There's also a massive lack of music, with most of the soundscape being dominated by the sound of chopper blades. You do get some music between missions, which isn't bad, but it's not terribly good either. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a theme of the show that the game is based on, but because it's never really something that I get to hear for a long stretch of time, I often completely forget about it. It doesn't help that it sort of just stops. Anytime a scene finishes, the music just hard cuts off. And it's kind of jarring, even if the actual composition isn't that bad. You definitely aren't playing this game for the looks or the sounds, unless you just really want the immersion of 8-bit chopper blades, and occasionally crashing. The game itself is not bad, but it does get very repetitive. But in that repetitive structure, there is a feeling of fun, as I can't say I didn't enjoy trying to beat my score, or tried to get just a little bit further into the game. However, I did start hitting the same sort of bottlenecks, and with how aggressive the enemies got, turning, firing, and then speeding up and slowing down all at once became incredibly cumbersome. But you have to. There are times when you have to drop speed in order to make tight turns or even aim your gun properly, but you need to already be turning while slowing down in order to avoid enemy fire. And if you slow down too much, whoops, you leave yourself open to attack. But then you speed up too much, you risk flying past your destination. It's a constant ebb and flow that's easy enough to manage early on, but gets a lot more annoying later. I really don't know what to make of this game. Its presentation and graphical style is fairly simple and basic. I mean, just look at the Titus-ass logo on it. It's kind of ridiculous compared to how the rest of the game tries to portray itself as fairly serious. It's very fast to blitz through in most situations, but its fast pace is kind of at odds to the precision that it starts to demand of you. And its controls and aiming, especially when you're on the defensive against a lot of missiles coming straight for you, can be incredibly difficult to manage. The need to manage your speed and the way it's implemented means you're never able to defend yourself while making adjustments. If you need to raise your speed, you have to take your finger away from the attack buttons, and lowering it means you can't adjust your pitch or your turning. And it takes a lot of practice to figure out exactly how long you have to hold the button down to adjust your speed to a level you're comfortable with, to say nothing of having to monitor both what's in front of you, while also watching how much your speed lowers or raises whenever you're trying to make these adjustments. Everything about this game feels relatively interesting when you first start to play it, but the longer the game goes on, the longer the missions become, the more hostages you have to save, it all starts to become more and more tedious and annoying as you get deeper in. It's not a very long game, most of the missions still don't take a huge amount of time to finish, and it's only 20 missions long. But once you start hitting the point where you have to stop and refuel after every single hostage you rescue, or risk running out of fuel and losing one of your very few precious lives, or having to start the entire game over from the beginning, that's the point where my patience starts to wear thin. It's another example of a game that is fun in short bursts so long as you actually know what you're doing, but not one that I would really play for extended periods of time. And considering the fact that it's based on a TV show seems to play into hardly anything, I'm going to take a wild shot at the copter and just assume that this isn't a particularly accurate adaptation. It's no wonder this game was always such a cheap and common grab back when collecting was still something a broke college kid could do. This is a game that I would describe as bubblegum. fun and flavorful at the start, but loses that spark way too quickly, and it's not really fun to keep chewing on for an extended period of time. Ugh, feels like rubber.